hashtags still work on Instagram? I feel like that's become one of life's great mysteries. In today's video, I'm going to be answering that question and giving you guidance on how you could be using hashtags on Instagram or if you should be using them at all. This video is sponsored by ManyChat, more on them later. All right, to kick off, I think it's important that we understand how Instagram actually uses hashtags, because the way in which Instagram use hashtags has changed over the years, and that's why they've become less powerful than they used to be. Back in the day, the only way that an average viewer would be able to find Instagram content specific to one interest. So let's say we've got someone who's really into finance content. Back in the day, the only way for that person to find finance content would be for them to search the hashtag finance or something similar, click on that hashtag, and then see the content which appears. And the only way that that content would be appearing under that hashtag would be if that content used the hashtag itself. You might be thinking, isn't that still how hashtags are used on Instagram? No. Nowadays, we have this wonderful thing called Instagram search, where you can actually search for content related to your interests, and Instagram will scour through hundreds of thousands of pieces of content to show you the content that they think is the most relevant to your interests and also the highest quality. Now, from a creator's perspective, we want to be amongst that content that Instagram is sharing to people when they search for it, right? That's the reason why we use hashtags, because we think, okay, great. If someone who's interested in my niche searches that hashtag, hopefully my content will appear. Nowadays, thanks to search, you don't actually need to use that hashtag for your content to appear. Nowadays, when Instagram's trying to figure out whether your content is related to finance, it's not just going to look for the hashtag finance, it's also going to analyze what your content is actually about. It's going to look at the different words you include in your captions. It's going to look at what your bio says, and it's going to take all of this information to try and figure out what your content is about. Once it's done all that, you increase the chances of your content being seen when someone is searching for it. All of that to say, guys, that Instagram's ecosystem has become a lot more advanced, and it no longer relies on us creators using a hashtag in order for it to identify what our content is about. Which brings me on to the next question. Should we be using hashtags then? If, as I've just said, we don't need to use hashtags in order for Instagram to share our content with the right people, why should we be using hashtags at all?
Why?
Well, the head of Instagram has literally said on multiple occasions that hashtags do not help your reach. Now, obviously, the head of Instagram knows a lot more about Instagram than you and I do. However, on this occasion, I'm inclined to ever so slightly disagree with him, because in addition to him saying that hashtags just don't help your reach, he's also made it very clear that hashtags can sometimes help other people find your content. Now, this is super clunky, but I think what he's essentially saying is that hashtags don't help your reach the way that they used to, mostly because of what I explained at the start of this video, but they do help Instagram understand what your content is about. And if Instagram understands what your content is about, it increases the chances of your content appearing when other people are searching for it. And if this is the case, then in a long-winded way, you will end up seeing an increase in your reach from it. It's just not going to be completely as a result of the hashtags that you're using. Okay, are you with me so far? Because I didn't realize how complex of a topic this was until I started talking. I also didn't realize how much of this I just knew off the top of my head until I started talking. Before we move on to answer the question, what hashtags should you be using and how do you use them properly? I do want to share a hack with you, which is going to help you increase your reach and your engagement without you having to lose sleep over the hashtags that you're using in your content. Now, the way in which this hack works is that it increases the amount of engagement that you get on your content, and as a result, it increases your reach. If you didn't know this already, Instagram keeps a close eye on how much engagement your content is getting, and if it notices that some of your content is getting a decent amount of engagement, there's a big chance that it might push it out into a broader audience, therefore increasing your reach. So how do you exactly spike your content's engagement? Well, you do this using a tool called ManyChat. Now, I feel like a lot of you might have already heard about ManyChat. Maybe you've heard about ManyChat from me. It's essentially an automation tool which allows you to create meaningful conversations and also drive your engagement. One of the most important things to mention about ManyChat, which you're probably already thinking in your head, this is an Instagram approved tool. So you will not get in any trouble for using ManyChat's features because it is approved by Instagram and Meta. One of the most common ways that you may have seen ManyChat be used in the past is when people include a call to action in their content along the lines of comment the word hype to get a direct link to this camera that I'm using. And then on the back end, that creator will create an automation which will allow them to automatically send that link to every single person who comments the word hype under that post. Now, in terms of how you want to use it to drive engagement and increase your reach, you can use one of ManyChat's many features to actually drive more comments and interactions under your content. You don't always have to use use these automations to do something like send links or drive sales if you're a product or business owner, although some people do use it for that use and they've seen a lot of great results from it. You could actually just use it as a way to spark more conversations amongst your audience, or maybe even as a way to drive some of your conversations to your direct messages, where studies have shown the most meaningful connections are formed, right? So it doesn't matter if you've got a product to sell or if you're a creator who's just trying to build a community, you can use ManyChat's automations to really drive this. I actually received a DM recently about ManyChat, and it really made me think, because the creator was like, I really want to use ManyChat, but I'm just not tech savvy. And it's such a good point, because I feel like on the surface, ManyChat might seem like one of those tools where you need to have tech experience in order to use it, but you really don't. The interface is genuinely so easy to use. Like, I set up automations in less than 5 minutes. Like, it's so quick and easy. They even have this AI assistant tool, which is always a few bonus ticks for me, because if a tool uses AI, best believe I'm going to use it. They have this AI assistant which will help you draft the text that you're going to be sending to your audience when they comment certain words or when they do certain actions. This is great for anyone who needs help with like nailing their tone of voice, or maybe you want to use ManyChat for a marketing purpose and you're not a marketer and therefore you need some help to ensure your messaging is landing the right way. You can use the AI assistant to basically help you do all those things. So if you want to use this hack to really drive your engagement and therefore your reach, I will of course include a link to ManyChat in the description. Thank me later. Okay, so I feel like we've got a really good understanding of how hashtags work in this day and age. Let's talk about how you can actually use them properly, right? Now, gone are the days where people used to just load their content with hashtags. Do you remember we used to use the maximum limit, which by the way is 30 hashtags, and we used to just load those in and we would put them as like comments under our content? Yeah, those days are over. If you're still doing that, cut it. I want you to cut that out right now. Now, the most important thing about hashtags is actually quality over quantity. And that has been the case for a little while. Instead of just finding 30 hashtags that are somewhat related to your content, you just want to focus on finding a handful of hashtags that are hyper related to your content. And if you can't find a handful, then don't use a handful. If you can't find any, then don't use any. The most important thing, and this is, if there's anything you want to remember from this video, is that the most important thing about using hashtags on Instagram is that the hashtags you are using are relevant, okay? They have to be relevant to you, to your brand, and to your content. A nice, like, is it called like a litmus test? I feel like it's called a litmus test. Let's run with it. I'm sure you guys will tell me if it's not in the comments. A nice litmus test that I like to tell my audience to do when it comes to whether or not their hashtag is relevant enough is to ask themselves, can that hashtag that you're considering using in your content be suitable to use across another piece of content that is very different to yours? So let's say I'm uploading a post and it's like a vlog, day in my life as a creator and entrepreneur. And the hashtag I'm using is day out in London, right? It took me a while to get there, but the hashtag I want to use is like day out in London. The litmus test would encourage me to think about whether or not that hashtag could be used on a piece of content that is very different from mine. And in my opinion, it can. Hashtag day out in London is quite vague. I think that could be used on a travel creators channel, for example, and I think it'd probably be better suited there. Therefore, I'm not going to use it, right? That's what I mean when I talk about hyper relevance. Just a quick word on this as well. If you are still using hashtag explore, I need you to stop doing that. Please stop doing it. It doesn't get you on the explore page. If anything, it could hurt your reach because it's so vague and generic that it doesn't help Instagram understand what your content is about. You should only be using hashtags which are going to help Instagram understand what your content is about. Also, just to clear up any ambiguity, why do I always use words that I don't usually use on a day-to-day basis when there's a camera in my face? I think that was right. Just to clear that up, when I say handful, Instagram have come out and said it's better to use 5 hashtags than to use 20 or 30. Why they still allow us to use 20 or 30, I don't know. In my opinion, just make it so that we can't use that many, but it doesn't matter. The point is 5 hashtags or even less than that is a totally fine amount. A quick word on banned hashtags as well. You guys might remember those pesky things. There are some hashtags that Instagram just don't like and therefore they ban them. And what that basically means is that if you use these hashtags, it could potentially hurt your reach. But more than anything, what we know for sure is that your content will not benefit from using these hashtags. Now, the best thing to do is to avoid using any hashtags that are obviously going to be banned. So like rude hashtags or hashtags that could be seen as spammy. And every now and then, just check the hashtags that you're using. And you do this by searching your hashtag and seeing if it appears. Now, the way in which Instagram will tell you if it's banned or not does change over time. At the moment, what my research has told me is that if the hashtag is banned, you won't see this plus icon on the top right hand on the screen because that plus icon allows you to follow the hashtag. You would not be able to follow the hashtag if the hashtag was banned. I will say though, that over the years, I've seen fewer and fewer hashtags actually be banned. And at the time of filming, I don't actually know of any hashtags hashtags which are banned. So I don't think they are as big of a problem as they used to be. Okay, so you might have thought that we were done. We're not. The final piece of the puzzle when it comes to figuring out how these pesky hashtags work in this day and age is to understand what happens after you use the hashtag. A common misconception here is that if you follow the guidance that I've shared in this video and you pick the right hashtag and you only use a few of them and they're super hyper relevant, then you're going to increase your reach and that's guaranteed. Unfortunately, that is not the case. The reason for this is that the algorithm on Instagram still very much exists and drives every single part of Instagram's platform, including hashtags. You are not safe from the algorithm gods anywhere. If you didn't know this already, and no, I'm not about to dive super deep into the algorithm, I'm just going to give you a very quick overview. Instagram has an algorithm which determines how well your content will perform. It does this by looking for signals within your content. So it will look for things like how much engagement it's getting. That's what I mentioned previously. It will assess the quality of your content. It will assess what your content is about, right? And it will take all of these signals and all this information to figure out if it's going to push it out to a broader audience. This system is still in place when it comes to your hashtag reach as well. So yes, you may have used the best hashtag in the world, and I'm so proud of you. But if Instagram looks for the signals within your content and they're not happy, so it's not getting a lot of engagement or they don't think the quality is that good and XYZ, it's still not going to get increased reach as a result of using that hashtag. On the flip side though, if Instagram has looked for all of those signals and it's actually realized that your content is amazing and you've used a super relevant hashtag, then you're probably going to see an increase in reach overall, in addition to getting more reach just purely from that hashtag. Does that make sense? It's basically all to say that using the right hashtag is not a secret ticket to increasing your reach like it used to be many years ago. That's not the case. Your content still needs to be good. The algorithm still needs to like it. And if you pass those tests and use the right hashtag, that is when you're in position to see an increase in reach. Okay, I hope you found that useful. I hope I explained that well, because again, it's more complex than I think I realized before I started speaking. Don't forget to check out ManyChat if you don't want to bother with any of the tips that I've given you today and you just want a proven hack to increase your engagement and reach. I will include the link to ManyChat in my description. If you feel like hanging around, I recommend watching this video. It's basically a breakdown of what's working on Instagram right now. I look at various different creators and business owners as case studies, and I take learnings from what they're doing that's performing well, and I share it with you guys so that you guys can use it to improve your strategy. Thank you so much for watching as always. I cannot wait to see you again in my next video.